William Morris, a prominent British poet, prose writer, and innovator of decorative arts in the 19th century, was also deeply engaged in social activism. His only play, The Tables Turned, or Nupkins Awakened, 1887, presents a vision of a utopian socialist society. The play begins in a court of justice, where Mr. Justice Nupkins unjustly oversees several hearings. A commotion interrupts the proceedings when a socialist ensign bursts in, declaring the onset of a workers' revolution and boldly proclaiming, "The tables are turned now." In the early 1880s, Morris became an active member of England's socialist movement, founding the Socialist League in 1884. He co-authored the League's manifesto, which called for a global workers' revolution to create a classless society free from economic inequality. Morris passionately advocated for this vision, delivering lectures in parks, at meetings, and even on street corners. During one such speech, he ignored a policeman's order to stop and was fined for obstructing the highway. This incident inspired the first act of Tables Turned, where Morris critiques the British justice system. In the play, Mr. Justice Nupkins presides over a courtroom where the scales of justice are tipped in favor of the wealthy and against the lower classes. The first defendant, Mr. Ladida, is a well-to-do gentleman who has been caught embezzling from his business associates. Despite clear evidence of his guilt, Nupkins is more concerned with sparing Ladida from the contamination of being associated with thieves and rioters. Consequently, he sentences him to only 1 month in prison as a first-class misdemeanant. The next case involves Mary Pinch, a poor mother of 3 who is falsely accused of stealing bread. The prosecutor, Mr. Hungary, is convinced of her guilt despite a lack of solid evidence. He presents 3 policemen as witnesses, but their testimonies fall apart when one officer, Sergeant Sticktoit, falters, exposing the farce. Mary, realizing that her guilt has already been determined, chooses not to cross-examine the witnesses, but instead delivers a poignant soliloquy. She recounts her journey from a peaceful life in the countryside, where she and her husband worked as farm laborers, to the destitution of London. After their livelihood was lost to new farming technology, they moved to the city in search of better wages, only to find themselves in even worse poverty. She reiterates her innocence, yet Justice Nupkins, undeterred by the lack of evidence, urges the jury to convict her. He portrays her case as part of a larger conspiracy among the poor to take from the rich. Mary is sentenced to 18 months hard labor. The final case in the play features John Freeman, charged with sedition, inciting riots, and obstructing the Queen's Highway for his advocacy of socialism in England. Mr. Hungary delivers a lengthy denunciation of socialism, condemning its attempts to overturn the established economic order, and proceeds to call Constable Potlagoff as a witness. According to Potlagoff's testimony, Freeman stood on a stool at Beedon Road and addressed a dense crowd. Though Potlagoff's account of the speech is dubious, he claims he heard Freeman mention a combination of the words capital and disembowel. When Nupkins presses Potlagoff for more specifics, the officer fails to provide a clear response. Undeterred, Nupkins simply decides that Freeman must have been urging his audience to disembowel Londoners. Potlagoff also recounts a chance meeting with Freeman in a pub, during which Freeman supposedly described the Socialist Brotherhood as 2 million strong and ready for an armed uprising against the bourgeoisie. Officer Sticktoit then takes the stand, confirming that he, too, witnessed Freeman's speech at Beedon Road. Sticktoit agrees with Potlagoff's estimate that the crowd numbered upwards of 1,000. He asserts that Freeman called for the rich to be disemboweled, and added that Freeman also spoke of capturing the Queen and the Bank of England. In his defense, Freeman calls 3 prestigious witnesses: the Archbishop of Canterbury, the poet Lord Tennyson, and the renowned scientist Professor John Tyndall. The Archbishop, who was present at the speech, disputes the crowd size, recalling that fewer than 5 people were there, not 1,000. He remembers Freeman arguing that capital had no bowels for the worker. Tennyson testifies that he once attended a socialist meeting incognito, but found it dull and unimpressive. Finally, Professor Tyndall gives his testimony regarding Freeman's alleged conversation with Potlagoff in the pub. Tyndall states without hesitation that Potlagoff was drunk at the time of the encounter. Nupkins then addresses the jury. After several minutes of dismissing the credibility of the distinguished defense witnesses, he assures the jury that he is not attempting to influence their decision. As expected, the jury finds Freeman guilty, and Nupkins sentences him to 6 years penal servitude. Meanwhile, the sounds of chanting from an approaching crowd grow louder. There is a pounding on the courtroom door, and a socialist ensign bursts in, announcing that the nonviolent socialist revolution is nearly complete. He declares that the courthouse will soon be transformed into a free market, ensuring that everyone in the district has enough to eat. Act 2 opens in a post-revolution, idyllic countryside scene. Citizen Nupkins, now stripped of his title as justice, hides in the trees, fearing that the socialists intend to hang him. Mary Pinch enters, radiating contentment, and reflects that she has become her old self come to life again. She spots Nupkins and, like a child with a new toy, invites him to her home to see how wonderful life has become. Nupkins, suspicious, fears it is a trap to capture him. In this new socialist order, resources are shared equally, and there is no need for judges or prisons. Disputes are settled in the open air, and decisions about shared responsibilities are made by consensus. As for Nupkins, the community assigns him the task of digging potatoes. The Tables Turned premiered in October 1887, and its success led to 10 additional performances the following year. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.